Good evening, everybody. Let's start our unification thought um, lecture on unification theology, unification thought. The Our topic will be now the theory of education. Can you see now the uh, the screen? Oh. Okay, thank you. So the theory of education um, has several forms, several aspects, but um, but I will only discuss few aspects in the theory of education, which is the the education thought theory of education posits that the primary goal of education should be to develop individuals to their full potential by aligning themselves with God's original intention and ultimately aiming to create a future ideal society where people live in harmony and unity, reflecting God's will of multiplication and dominion. Essentially, it views as a path to achieving resemblance to God's perfection. Okay? So in unification theory of education, the purpose of education is to empower human beings to achieve resemblance to God's perfection, to God's nature of multiplication, and to God's nature of dominion. Based on these goals, the ideal of education can be established. Okay? So again, this is very in the unification thought. This is one of my favorite topic, the theory of education, because as educator myself, you know, as a teacher, a professor, you know, understanding and learning this theory of education reflects on how you as educator um, uh, which is shall I say convey your message to your students, right? But this is very unique in um, in our theory in the unification theology thought, because what we learn is this is based on divine principle, based on the divine principle book or lecture, right? But this has been extracted or been expounded, you know, in order to guide our teachers and to how to deliver uh, educational skills or even educational management to their students, right? So this is, I say, empower human beings to achieve resemblance to God's perfection, to God's multiplication, to God's nature of dominion. This is why this is somehow unique to um, our to this study, or on our we may not be called a theology, but it's a theory of education that we by which our maybe our ministry of education, if this can be adapted, this is really very powerful. This can help people or the people themselves. They can be guided in order for them to understand the nature of God. Okay, so uh, the issues in chapter 5. This is in chapter 5 in the unification thought, the theory of education. The issues that are related to education, such as the moral degradation of today's youth, sexual immorality, and violence in the classrooms, have already been introduced in earlier chapters. Given the lack of vision, present-day education has lost its sense of direction. Schools have turned into places where knowledge is often simply sold and bought, and where teachers have lost their authority. A new theory of education is needed to put an end to the present chaos and open the way for a new world order. This is the reason for introducing the unification theory of education. Theories of education have two aspects. One is philosophical, which deals with the fundamental principles of education, and one is scientific, which deals with objective facts related to education. So unification of education deals primarily with the philosophy of education, and thus the Songsang aspects and the Yongsang aspects of education. So again, theory of education deals on how to guide our young people. Now we are dealing with the millennials or the Gen Z, what are ano na ba kayong Gen na tayo ngayon? Gen Z or XYZ? So because um uh the our generation now is not much more on religion, you know. They are not they are not uh so let's say uh they cannot relate with religion. Most young people now are are interested on a computer, interested on um, social media, and they're being influenced by the social media actually, you know, and many of them are not interested on going even to the church, right? Or having a religious experience. But what is very important now in our church is that many young people are, developing spiritual experience with True Mother, developing, spiritual education by True Mother, because our second, you remember in the Christian, or before the Christians, that you know the what you call is the when the Israelites went to the wilderness, um, the old people were complaining about their situation in the wilderness, right? But based on the lessons that they learned in the wilderness, Joshua and Caleb were leading the young people because God was guiding them to really go to the land of Canaan. But the old people were complaining, "Oh, Moses, you brought us to this land. We have no water, no food, no nothing. They only eat manna and quail. What's a manna? It's like the one from heaven, and quail is like chicken. So they eat chicken for 40 years in the wilderness. But the young people, led by Joshua and Caleb, said, "Oh, let's go," you know. So only the young people reached the land of Canaan. So we have to remember that True Mother is leading the young people today uh, to really reach the Chunil group, and they are responding to True Mother. So this is very important aspects in our church this time, because True Mother is sending missionaries, young people throughout the world, and you educated them, about unification principles, and guiding them, helping them to become God's em- emissary uh, to um, to um, to other countries, and promote not our church actually, but promote God, our heavenly parents. So that's why True Mother is trying to solve the moral degradation of our young people today, and the sexual immorality and violence in classrooms, you know, because True Mother is really very concerned about our young people, especially our second generation, you know. Um, this is really one of the instruction of True Mother to send young people throughout the world. This is now the time, actually, you know. So this theory of education deals with the education of our young people, in order to avoid them in all these kind of problems in moral degradation in our present era. Okay, so the theory of education has princi in the is guiding the guiding principles is the three great blessings and the three great ideals of education. I'm sorry, wala akong slides nito, but we only I'm only extracting this from the book of the unification thought. Education can be described as a process of raising children to resemble God. So as the Bible was saying that be perfect as your heavenly Father in heaven is perfect. So we as God's children has to resemble God, right? To resemble God is to grow and come to resemble the divine image and character perfectly as God is perfect. The three great blessings, be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion, means that humankind is to resemble God's nature of perfection, multiplication, and dominion. To resemble God's perfection through the first blessing is to achieve perfection of one's individuality, to achieve unity of one's spirit, mind, and physical mind centering on heart, and to reach a state where one's mind and body are united. To resemble the aspect of God's nature that is related to multiplication by completing the second blessing is to achieve perfection of the unity of yang and yin, means the unity of husband and wife, right? To resemble God's nature that is related to multiplication by completing the second blessing is to achieve perfection of the family and to come to resemble the harmonious oneness of God's yang and yin nature. For human beings, the harmonious unity of yang and yin means the unity of husband and wife. For this, the two must complete the course of perfecting their conjugal love to resemble the aspects of God's nature that relates to dominion by completing the third blessing is to perfect one's creativity. It also means to resemble God's creativity by creating a new being centered on heart. In the unification theory of education, the three ideals of education are based on the three blessings. Hence, the first ideal of perfection consists of educating people about how to perfect their personality. The second ideal of perfection consists of educating people about how to achieve perfection of their family. The third ideal of perfection of dominion consists of educating people about how to exercise their dominion over all things. So the theory of education actually is based on the three great blessings, perfection, um, perfection of oneself, or on the perfection of the family, and the perfection of dominion of all things, right? So for human beings to resemble God, they need to go through a specific period of growth, right? Growing period, right? Accordingly, human beings only come to resemble God after growing through the three stages of formation, growth, and perfection. The process of growth implies that one comes to resemble God's character, the harmony between yang and yin nature, as well as his creativity, whereas our physical body grows through the autonomy and dominion of the principle alone. As with the growth of all things, the spirit mind can only grow through the additional completion of a portion of responsibility. Saying that human beings only grow through the fulfillment of their portion of responsibility means that they have to develop their personality by their own effort and responsibility. Develop their personality by their own effort and responsibility. Thus, they can grow by experiencing God's love while observing the norm or the principle by their own free will. So, the three forms of education must be derived from the three ideals. Education of the heart is needed for the perfection of the individual. Education of norm is needed for the perfection of the family, and education of dominion, including technical, educational, intellectual education, and physical education, is needed for the perfection of dominion. So what is education of the heart? Education of the heart seeks to perfect one's individual character and thus resemble God's perfection. Resembling God's perfection refers to the state where one fully experiences God's heart and creates unity between one's spirit mind and one's physical mind through give and take action centered on the heart. Therefore, the form of education that aims at understanding and expressing God's heart can be called education of heart, and is directed towards the perfection of individuality. As what also the Bible says, be perfect as your Heavenly Father is perfect in Matthew 5:48. Okay? Then God's heart is expressed in three different forms. First, there is the heart of hope. In the Bible, the creation of Adam and Eve as his first children was God's ultimate hope in creation. During the course of creation, God's heart was filled with hope and joy in anticipation for their coming. Second is the heart of sorrow, which corresponds to God's feelings when Adam and Eve, his first children, fell during their growing period and came to be dominated by Satan. This can be compared to what human parents go through when they lost their children. But the degree of intensity of God's pain based upon the scope of his hope and expectation at the time of creation can in no way be compared to the human situation. And third, there is the heart of suffering. After the human fall, God had to proceed with providence for the restoration. In that process, he had to watch how these figures carrying the central responsibility in his dispensation were persecuted and ridiculed, even killed by Satan's representative. This caused him unspeakable heartache and suffering. For this reason, education of the heart means teaching humans to understand and experience personally their aspects of God's heart. Most importantly, God's heart of suffering and anguish in the course of restoration needs to be conveyed. In so doing, instructors should express God's heart by their example and through their actions as much as through their words. By imitating their teachers, children will learn to practice God's love in their daily lives, and they will be able to inherit His heart. The second one is education of dominion. Is the education that shows how to achieve perfection in one's family life, and it is the form of education that teaches men and women to resemble the harmonious unity of God's yang and yin nature when they form a couple. Thus, it is the education that shows how to gain the qualification to become a spouse. Through the education of norm, the mystery and sanctity of sex should be taught with special care. Children should be awakened to the fact that sex is to be experienced only through married life, that until that time it should not be misused under any circumstances, and that after marriage deviation cannot be tolerated. Education of norm is an education that guides people to become beings of reasonable law by following the way of heaven. The education of norm should go hand in hand with the education of the heart, because education of norm teaches humans how to control their actions. It can easily degenerate into an empty and oppressive set of rules if it lacks the element of love. And lastly, education for the perfection of dominion. Education of dominion deals with the perfection of dominion and consists of three aspects. First, intellectual education is concerned with knowledge about the objects over which one has dominion, be the human or material. This is the role of intellectual education. When the object of knowledge is material, education focuses on the natural sciences, and when the object is human, it focuses in politics, economics, and social sciences, and the humanities and the like. Second, it is necessary to acquire technical knowledge, how in technical know-how in order to develop one's creativity. This is the role of technical education. Finally, it is necessary to build up one's physical strength to be able to exert dominion. This is the role of the physical education. The three taken together, intellectual, technical, and physical, amount to education of dominion. Let us consider the development of our creativity and the two-stage structure of creation in relation to education. God's creativity is His ability to realize the two-stage structure of creation. That is, it is His ability to establish the inner and outer four-position foundations. The acquisition of broad knowledge is needed in order to enhance one's ability to realize an inner four-position foundation. This means increasing the content, ideas, and concepts of the inner Yongsang. On the other hand, the mastery of technical skills is required in order to improve one's ability to realize an outer four-position foundation. The former refers to intellectual education, and the latter is to the technical education. So, the education of heart and education of norm should be acquired equally by all people and constitute universal education. In contrast, education of dominion corresponds to the realm of individual differences in the nature and ways of learning, and is fundamentally an individual specific education. Universal education and individual education stand in relationship of Songsang and Yongsang. Hence, individual education must be realized on the basis of universal education, which is unification of heart, and education of norm. The two go hand in hand. Only in this way is a truly balanced education possible. And secondly, the unification theory of education, the ideal educated person is introduced in terms of being a person of character or a good citizen and a genius. This is the ideal view of the human being corresponding to the three types of education, that heart, norm, and dominion. Therefore, when seen in terms of the image of the ideal person, education of the heart may be described as the education to develop people of character. Education of dominion may be called education to foster and develop good citizens, and education of dominion may be called education to develop people of genius. The image of any person in education of heart is that of a person of character. To become such a genius person, one has to learn how to experience God's heart and practice his original true love in daily life. A person of ideal character has perfected the entire personality, having developed the faculties of intellect, emotion, and will in a balanced way on the basis of heart. In summary, the person of character practices God's original true love toward all people and all things. The image of ideal person sought in the education of norm is that of a good citizen. The education of norm may be given in schools, but its basis must be taught in the family. Therefore, a person who has received a good standard of education of norm in the family can become a good member of the family, society, nation, and the world. The image of a person in education of dominion is that of a genius. Originally, all human beings were endowed with God's creativity. The one who fully manifests this creativity based on the dominion of education of dominion we call a genius. Since human beings have been given individuality, those who fully develop their own creativity will become geniuses in such various fields such as music, mathematics, politics, business, administration, and so on. In the environment produced by the human fall, however, people have become unable to fully display their God-given creativity and have tended to settle for mediocrity. That is the reality of dominion in the fallen society. The next topic is theory of value, axiology. So let us discuss this theory of education. Um, how this related to our modern education, how our Department of Education, how our teachers or shall we say, um, how our professors or teachers their students in terms of educating their heart, educating their norm, educating their the dominion, which is very unique, as I said, in unification thought, because not maybe some of the teachers, share about education of heart, education of norm, or dominion, which is very important because education of the heart is to produce people who are perfected individuals. And education of norm is to create a family who are good citizens. And education of dominion is to produce people who are geniuses, right? So, but although many schools or universities have produced people like geniuses, but have these universities produced people who have good heart or a perfected character, or have these schools develop a family of good citizens? You know, so this is one very questionable, right? I believe. schools have developed people who are genius, but not all of them, you know. So you can just select or you just handpick people who are genius. But what's important, you may be a genius, but you're having a bad character. You may be a genius person, but you have broken family, right? Not a good citizen, right? So, but what is really very important, we have to, these three aspects of education must be taught in schools. But, this as we said that um, the home is the first school of our children, right? But we need to also develop our parents to teach this education, theory of education to the children, how they can develop as a person with a good character to become good character. And when these children become adult and have families, how can they become a good citizens in the community, in the nation, in the world, and how we can develop them to become genius persons, right? This is a very important aspect. As I said, very unique unification thought in our in that needs to be uh, shared or needs to be taught in schools, right? Okay, let's have some few discussions on this topic, theory of education. Theory of education does assess three aspects: um, education of the heart, education of norm, and education of dominion. Can we start with who wants to start? Roy? Okay, let's hear your takeaways or reflections on this matter. Go ahead, Roy. Naka-record tayo, Roy, di ba?
The,
Check, check, check. Okay, nakakuha ka na, Roy.
the theory of education, actually, as lecturers, dapat ito master natin to give lectures on this, especially when we deal with like educators.
Mhm.
Mm. Now, basically, this is trigger blessing, but the approach is more on uh,
Hindi siya religious, but more on practical
more
way of
practical, philosophical approach.
physical approach. Yeah.
It deals with the objectives of education. That's the education or in the word uh, may kulang eh. May kulang.
Mm.
May kulang. Okay. As what we have said that we produce so many geniuses, but
Mm.
oh, we did not educate people in their character.
Good character, yeah.
You know, uh,
Many have broken families.
yeah. Um, education, if you're not educating to have a good character is really not an education at all.
Yeah,
Because
that's right. Because
you
they are.
instead of creating, educating people to become genius in their field, in their God-given talent, they might misuse their talent.
That's right, correct. I believe that.
Long time already, I give lecture on this. I have PowerPoint. I'm looking for my PowerPoint. Where's the PowerPoint? This lecture, my files, searching. Kaya I have a very good experience on this when I go home. I think that was only 15 years ago. I went home and have project.
Present mo sa next meeting, Roy, yung slides mo. Ikaw mag-lecture. Okay lang? Present.
Yes, I can find.
Okay.
I have project in Muslim Village Elementary School in our place, and that it was I give like blackboards and chairs there in village. Yung organization namin dito. So and then the superintendent is present, and she invited me to give lectures to the teachers. So there are almost 100 teachers who attended. So I gave this theory of education.
Oh, yeah, really good.
Teachers in our place. Most of them are my classmates also. In elementary and high school.
Oh, yeah.
So really this is very effective. The teachers, even most of them are Muslims. Our superintendent are Muslim.
Oh, yeah.
This is very effective education to the educators. So yeah, basically this is the BAM principle. With the approach is different. Okay? Deal with the Bible verses, but we deal with philosophical approach. So I think we should not only limit ourselves to like pastoral type giving sermons, but we should be equipped also with this theory of education.
You must be educators too,
And
not just pastors. You must be teachers.
So that when we face, magharap tayo ng iba't ibang audience, we know how to approach, anong gamitin natin, slides, natin na PowerPoint, like that.
So you can present na next meeting on your
theory of education.
maganda kasi may mga may mga slide, may mga figure, may yung
I will look for my andito lang to sa mga files ko.
next meeting, next Sunday, mag-present ka, maybe around like 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, about the theory of education. So that's it, right?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
About Julius, let's finish with you with your takeaways.
Yes, Doc. So, very important really in this time, no? in this generation. Kasi we can see itong time na to, yung rampant immorality, teenage pregnancy, drug and alcohol abuse, many things. So sa schools, very important that we have to be educated. Firstly, yung theory education of the heart. Ito ang very important. So, yung nga sinabi mo kanina na mention mo yung Bible verse, you should be therefore perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. So this is one thing only. But then ang issue dito, ano ba si God? Kasi if we base on the principle, yung first ng divine principle, chapter 1, problems concerning human life and the universe cannot be solved without first understanding the nature of God. So itong titingnan natin, yung nature ni God. Even yung dito sa sinabi dito, the primary deals with the songsang aspect of the issue. What is the songsang aspect? This is Korean. This is internal aspect of God. So ito ang very important na ma-understand nila. Unless hindi nila mag-gets itong internal aspect ni God. Wala nga. Kasi ito yung ng Paul eh. Because of the Paul, we descend into ignorance. Ignorance about the existence and the will of God. So, kaya ito yung i-revive natin ngayon. Because pag na-educate natin sila, then we can resemble God. Kasi we have guide eh.
Yeah.
We cannot resemble God without a guide. So, paano natin itong purpose ng religion, ba? Bring everyone back. So, ito, sa setting ng education, ito, inano natin yung of course, sa religious aspect, alam natin to yung Genesis 1:28.
Yeah.
Sa to, in divine principle perspective. Kasi, yung Genesis 1:27, God created man in His own image after His likeness.
Yeah.
So, yun. But after, para na-understood natin sa principle, para ma-resemble natin o magiging, we become like God, resemble God. Ito yung three great blessings ang kasunod agad, which is be fruitful or be perfect. And multiply, in that foundation, multiply and have dominion over the creation. Ito yung three great blessings na. So, dito natin, pwede natin yung yung internal aspects ni God. So, the very important, yung anong pinaka-core ni God? Yung sa internal aspect. Anong pinaka-core niya? Yung heart. And heart motivates love. So, First John chapter 4, verse 8, God, he who does not love does not know God, for God is love. So, then, yung sa, yung sa, niya, no? So, if we look at human beings, no, we have three human functions, intellect, emotion, will. So, in relation to it should be rooted in heart. And our pursuit should be pursuit o actions natin. Kasi ito yung, dito nagbe-base yung actions natin sa intellect, emotion, will. So, our actions and conduct should be a pursuit of truth, beauty, and good. So, ito yung natin, mape-perfect natin yung character natin based on this. Kasi dito yung natin, understanding natin na natin through the actions, mag-manifest through the actions of our body. So, very important ma-inculcate sa minds ng natin. On everyone of us, no exception. So, kaya lang, we have ito, pag na-attain natin perfection na to, there is 3 stages of growth. Yung na-mention mo rin kanina, formation growth stage. So, from childhood, adolescence, then adult. So, ito yung, kaya ma-refer din natin, kasi yung pinaka-core ni God is heart, di ba?
Yeah.
So, kaya ma-refer natin yung yung 4 realms of heart, or love.
Yeah.
Ito yung love. So ito sa na to, naka-rooted dun yung yung actions natin. Children's love, siblings love. Pag dating natin adolescence. Then pag natin sa second ito sa heart to, sa second naman yung sa education of norms or horizontal relationship sa family and become good citizens nation. So, ito naman yung sa conjugal love, then parental love. So, ito sa family very important kasi ito yung first na education ng lahat dito tayo namumula to. Secondary yung sa schools, of course. Then diyan na yung natin, ma-experience natin totality of God's love. Kaya dito natin kumbaga ma-resemble, rooted on heart. So makita din natin sa principle, divine principle, na God is the harmonious union of original internal nature and original external form, or mind and body, rooted on heart, rooted on this heart. So kaya yun ang natin in kumbaga in specific or na term, unite natin yung mind and body natin. So mind of based on truth, beauty, and goodness. Ito naglalaro dyan. then actions ng body natin, harmonious yun yan. So, diyan natin maano yung after passing through these 3 stages of growth, ma-perfect natin yung character natin. Now, we can experience the heart of God. Kasi ito yung very important. You can experience the heart of God. So, after that, yun na yung sa family relationship. Individual perfection, family perfection. From this foundation, na you can create a perfect, an ideal family. Tapos mag-span yan, ideal nation, ideal world, and ultimately yung kingdom yung pinipray natin. And yung third blessing, perfect dominion over the natural world. Perfect dominion of heart over the natural world. So yung enhance natin yung yung natural world. Kasi we are to create a pleasant living environment. So, dito, maano natin yung creativity natin. Kasi co-creator tayo. Kasi ito yung purpose ng why God gave us responsibility in order for us to inherit the creative nature.
Yeah.
Creator tayo. Tayo co-create nitong God's creation as co-creator. So, provided that we fulfill that responsibility. At yun ang na terms ng genius in all aspects. Kasi we are inheriting yung creative nature ni God. And we worthy to become the co-creators of the creation. So, ayan, yun yung natin sa education. Kasi ito very clear sa divine principle. So, ito sa academic setting, philosophical setting, dito natin may din. Kasi yung iba, sila not everyone kasi is religious eh. Merong iba conscientious sila. More on inclining sa in the religious side. Kaya itong unification thought, ito yung pang dito eh. Pag they can have this base, they will look for more. Ito yung bridge ba? That they can be educated to the full extent of the ideals of God. Ito papasok ng kasi itong ASEMS na mission ng New Truth eh. Kasi before John 16:25, Jesus Christ have to say, I have many things to say to you. But you can't determine me now. Because of the level of their spirituality and intellectuality. Pero ngayon iba na. Ito na yung application. Kaya ito lahat, itong mga hindi inclined sa yung religious side. Pero once na they will be educated by this, ito yung first step bridge. That they will look for more. And they will be returned to this divine principle. Kasi ang divine principle not only relating on religious aspects, it relates also everything, all ASEMs, science. So lahat na dito. That's why it can embrace all historical religions, philosophies and ideologies. Kasi everything, andito lahat ng answer in a plain language can be understood. So kaya itong lang to kasi mayroong iba nag-aalok ka agad eh. Ay pag sabi mo religious side, kagad. Pero once mapasukan mo nito, we are the one to look for more.
Correct.
Look for more. So bridge lang to. It can be, we will be understood. We can understand everything through this. Kaya maganda yung na to. Meron tayong different approaches. In order to religious side, academic side, mga settings na nag-cater. Sa tungil mo ganun din. Ibang style din sa 3 life goals naman doon. 3 big blessings pa rin sa natin 3 life goals. So, yan. Ganun din. Unite mind and body. Tapos yung to establish a healthy, happy family and to use our skills to bring out positive contribution to our society. So, that 3 big blessings din siya. Pero different aspects na So, ganun yung first approach, di ba? Yung mga hindi religious na mga sports-minded na tao. Pero once na nakuha natin sila dyan, papasok na ang ending divine principle. Diba? So,
Yeah,
lahat lahat ng meron tayong different approaches in
yeah,
all levels, walks of life.
that's right.
Yes. And Doc, thank you.
Thank you, Julius. So this is really a genius creativity or work of our members in the church, right? Especially Dr. Sang Hun Lee, who compiled. Maybe Dr. Lee was not alone in doing this theory of unification thought, but he must have people who are genius, who are really, have creativity in making this um, philosophical approach of the divine principle, scientific philosophical approach of the divine principle, which is really very important. Not so many people can do this, right? You know, so many of our church members or leaders have a really creativity, that God has given to guide our members, who supported our true parents, true father. So anyway, as we develop, as we move forward, and as we increase membership, and as what True Mother was saying, that no one is left behind, the 7.8 billion people would be reconciled and will go back to God's bosom, which is really very important. That we need to find ways and means, or way of how we educate them, and how we can bring them to God, in a way, scientific, philosophical, or whatever means, in order for them to understand the heart of God. So because this is theory of education is really one aspect, or really a unique way of how to educate young people, which is not being delivered by many schools or by teachers. Nobody had produced persons who have good character. But most important, the education of our children, we should not give that to the teachers, because they are not trained to do this, right? Only us parents. If we parents really strictly uh, impose, or not impose, but really learn this theory of education, and apply this to our children, then our children will really become a good citizens. They become having perfected their characters, and eventually they become a genius persons. I noticed, our second generations are really very unique, very different from us, right? They are they're almost like genius, they resemble God. They resemble God as God's children. You can notice that to your own children. I noticed that in my own children. They develop something unique, you know. And they have a good character, and they're wishing to have a build a family. Although, hindi pa sila na-match. 28 na yung aking eldest, 26 yung second, 24 naman yung third. So, it's really a challenge for us as parents. But let us continue to guide our second generation and give them hope, and give them, education that resemble God's way of educating our young people. This is the very core. This is a very core principle of this unification thought of education of heart, education of knowledge, education of dominion, that helps to produce young people of good character, good citizens, and people of genius ability. All right. So I guess this is it. Um, I hope that we can learn from this and develop and really master. Although I'm not so good in giving the lecture unification thought, but who knows? You know, Roy will be the master, the PhD, PhD of unification thought. Right? We have to develop, right? We are not claiming that we are the perfect teachers of this unification thought. Even Kuya Jerry is really a very humble person. When I listen to him, he's really a very humble person. When he give a lecture in the divine principle and unification thought. And Julius also will be one of the best lecturers. I remember yung mga natin, mga training natin, 3 days, 7 days, 21 days, 40 days seminars, right? Meron tayong model lectures, di ba? Nagpantay ng mga lecture, practice lectures, or even, but kailangan mo talaga yung i-develop yung ating uh, educational materials.
I think
Uh,
it's one of us as a gift. And there are people who are gifted in
right.
preaching. There are people who are gifted in giving lectures, because preaching and giving lectures is two different things.
Witnessing, fundraising.
So,
Hmm.
yung ganon,
Yeah,
kung anong gift natin, yun ang
that's right.
i-share
God's
natin.
God's giving
That's
gift.
our geniuses. You cannot be
Also,
genius if
we
that's not
develop as
your gift.
genius. Right.
Actually, many geniuses outside, kailang na-misuse yung ano nila.
Mm.
Tulad nung mga na-create na invent nila na ano, they invented yung mga
Yeah.
weapons of mass destruction. This is really misapplication of ano
Use. This is a
ideals of God.
genius.
Tapos yung mga music, mga iba, mga genius musician. Yung
Yeah.
music nila, iba, ang wordings nila, parang ano
Ang iba,
creating
mga
destruction
sexual.
or
Oh,
promoting
violence.
promoting something immoralities
Yeah.
So dapat talaga ma-educate ang lahat.
Yeah.
Kasi otherwise yung ano nila ma-transform yung mga talent and skills nila
Hmm.
into conducive to realizing God's ideal.
That's right.
So simulan natin ngayon naman lahat naman tayo we are doing everything naman for the sake yun ang ano ni promoter.
Simulain natin
One is
ating tatlo.
uh,
We can promote, right? Okay, that's about it. So yeah, maybe the same thing in the finals. Our finals will be a model lecture on unification thought. Short, like 5 to 10 minutes. Sabi mo, Roy, meron kayong slides ng unification thought.
Actually, I have copies sa lahat ng ng unification
Okay.
of lectures.
Maybe would you able to share that, post that into our group chat, and then everyone can choose a topic like education of, theory of education, ontology, axiology, or yung first part ng unification. Meron pang theory of history, something like that. So you can
Sa group chat natin
choose
yung
a topic. Mahaba actually ang theory of education din. Ang daming topic. So, if you choose, you have to choose one topic, which is just only maybe 10 slides, 5 to 10 minutes presentation. That is your final exam. Okay? That will be on June 6. Okay lang yun.
Kaya ba yan sa oras? Kaya sa oras ba natin, Doc? 1 hour lang yung allotted for ano?
Kung nga pala, 1 hour
For,
lang pala. 5 minutes na lang, 5 minutes. De,
siguro,
pwede naman natin
advance
gamitin yung time sa pastoral counseling. Pastoral care. Pwede yung
ah,
gamitin. 3 hours yung,
the same,
di ba?
pwede rin.
Hmm.
Isang ano din, Doc, pwede ka mag, ano ng topics, kung anong gusto nila. Tapos,
Okay. Yung,
sila na mag-decide. Kasi ikaw naman yung nakakaalam nung na previous lectures,
mhm.
dito sa period na to, sa second sem na to. So, yung na-topic natin, mamili lang kami kung anong gusto.
Okay. The unification thought. How about the pastoral care? You can choose your own title of the sermon, right?
Yes, Doc, yung na-mention mo naman kanina. Basta
Yeah.
doon nag-revolve sa tatlong aspeto. Yung
Maybe
needs nung
I will present a short sermon, and then maybe the next week, next meeting, I will present a short sermon, and then maybe the next we just a short parang sabihin natin kung um, guide or whatever.
model lecture.
Model lecture. Model sermon. And then si Roy ang model lecture ng unification thought, theory of education, di ba, Roy?
No problem.
Meeting. Prepare ka lang, prepare. Okay. So, yun na ba? Wala nang question or do you have any clarifications? Something? Or
Tapos yung ano pala, Doc, yung